Yeah, yeah, sure,
So I
sure.
guess we can just start with like what you did in the military and how you transitioned out.
Yeah, so I joined the army as an aircraft electrician, and I basically fixed both Blackhawks and Chinook's electrical components. We call like avionics, the electrical components on like aircrafts. I did it for 6 years, and I was lucky enough to participate in like a president mission when President Obama was president, and went to Afghanistan, supported air mission for about 8 months. It's been great, but I felt like it's the feeling of that some people's life, like their lives are depending on my hand. It was very burdening. Besides that, it was fantastic. Like everyone like everyone likes aviation, right? But so I had to find something else, like alternative, like as challenging as aviation. So I got into IT with my friend Justin through MSSA program.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you do now? You say you get in IT.
Yes, I work for one of the big cloud provider. They call it like MAGA, and I work on IS, infrastructure as service,
Okay.
VM machines, which is I didn't know what it was about like a year ago.
Okay.
I had no idea. Yeah,
That's,
so
that's awesome. What about you, Justin?
Yeah, so I was an intelligence analyst, so 35 Fox by trade. And a lot of people ask me what that is. I think I'm just playing the bad person. I would pretty much play the devil's advocate, right? So if I were a bad person, how would I affect and how would I carry out my plan based on the environment, based on the equipment that we have, based on the time of day, and how could we inflict this most damage? So I'm trying to role play as them, put this information together, and then give it back to whoever makes the decisions on that. So
Okay.
it was like the devil's advocate. Well, can we really do that? And what's the chances of that? How likely is this? What's most dangerous? What's least likely?
Okay.
And for that. And so I did like that, and I did enjoy it, and I liked playing devil's advocate. However, what was really exciting was more like the cyber and the people that did IT, right? And so as interested as I was, because of my job, I wasn't really allowed to touch those things. So kind of like the smack your hand away type thing. So that's why I joined the MSSA program. So I met Jong, and that's where it really took off. So I was able to really peak or do something I was really excited about or interested in.
Okay. And what do you do now?
Right. So I work in tech, and I'm for a cloud service provider as well. But I like it. I just started a new job, so I'm excited about that onboarding process. But it seems really exciting, and I don't know a lot, which is what I like about tech. Honestly, like there's a lot of things to learn. There's a lot of things that you can find in your niche. So I'm enjoying this journey, to be honest.
Okay. Awesome. So I'm gonna ask you guys a real like controversial question. So just be aware, right?
yeah.
So why did you decide to leave the military?
So, for me, when I was in the military, I was at the point when I got promoted to NCO, I was at the point that I was gonna only get further away from being technical. I had to be, everyone knows. Everyone probably watching this video knows that NCOs and officers, they are like a more manager side. So like I didn't like that. So I wanted to find a way to be advanced, and maybe there's another way in the military that you can advance your technical skills, but I found outside of the military.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it was more about I think humans work on incentives, right? And so what's the incentive to do better, right? And so I came into the military and I did everything I said I wanted to do, right? Deployment, kind of do the intel stuff, right? Travel. I was able to do that. And so what are my personal incentives and what did I like about certain things? So being in the military, I liked that I do get to travel and I do get to see things. But however, being in the military, your schedule is not as open, right? And if you want to go somewhere and if you want to do something, it usually requires some paperwork, some sort of like permission, some sort of like clearance or something like that. So I was like, this is cool and I like that. So how do I find something that allows me to do so? What allows me to see my family more, right? As well. So that's why I joined the tech field. I was incentivized maybe working from home, traveling, doing things like that, just having a more free schedule and kind of being autonomous, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. Like you're always on call in the military, right? They can call you anytime that they want. So that's what I found exciting about it. And that's why I honestly left.
Okay. Now, what would you say to someone that was in your shoes? Say they're E4, E5, they're thinking, they're at their 7-year mark and they're deciding where they want to get in. What advice would you give them, that person specifically?
I feel like honestly, like if you're single, you have a lot of rooms. I'm single as well, so I have no capacity to talk about married people. I guess like a lot of people do it for their family. I've seen a lot of military folks who are married and have dependents decide to stay in the military while they're unhappy. But for single people, you were still young and people recognize what you did in the military. And honestly, I got this job solely based on my experience about like a troubleshooting experience as well as my soft skill. Like can you learn things? Like can you adapt to new environment? Can you make people not like feeling insulted? So being respectful, those kind of things are like important.
What I would tell someone for sure is to have a plan, right? And to work backwards between that date that they imagine leaving, and almost a year and a half out, to be honest. If I didn't have this program that I went through, I would have been grossly unprepared or unprepared for what life was going to throw at me, to be honest. And so everyone's situation is different. I was fortunate enough to go back to my family and they would have let me stay for, a couple months till I get on my feet. I don't know if everyone's situation is like that, to be honest. Yeah. So prepare for sure. And that means, hey, start doing budgets. Use those resources that you have in the military as far as like your financial planner, like your guidance counselors, those career services, getting your resume together. That's something that we really worked on. And that's what I really appreciate about that program that we went through. It was a lot of professional development, LinkedIn, resume building, interview preps. And I would just say work back that way. And because what I see from a lot of people, even inside the military, that they're going to leave, I'm just going to go to like school and then that's it. And then maybe they don't go to school. Or I'm going to find this job or something like that. And you just need to be convicted and you need to be, it's scary because change is scary, but just make sure you have a plan. And if you really believe in it, go for it and do it.
So, with that thought, right, that you both said, what's something you learned about, from being in the military that you can apply to your everyday life, or that you do apply, to your everyday life?
One thing I learned from the military is military is definitely like a melting pot, right? So you see a lot of different people like coming from like different countries, like different part of the country. Like they speak like different languages, they eat different food, and you just happen to be in the one place that you can't get out as you want. And doing the same thing, right? And you hear like and see a lot of different perspective. Like there are like different religious people, like different people like who's practicing different religion and eat different food and like different language and the way they think. And you just gotta, I think one thing I learned is that you can't really, how can I say this? Like generalize everything. So like, I always try to like learn things because like, there might be answer, but like to reach to the answer there are like different ways, and not a lot of there are like it's possible and nothing is really wrong about it. Yeah, that's what I learned from the military. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said, especially managing people and different personalities. I think the military is unique in the fact that you get to manage people early in your career, right? And some people coming from high school, by age 20, 21, you're a manager, right? And some of those skills that you learn and you're allowed to build upon. So I think that's super super interesting. What I also learned is that my barrier for happiness and being content is super low, and I don't think it's like a bad thing.
Oh, it's a great
Like
thing. Yeah.
it's just how I view it is that because you did basic, because you slept in some place that you didn't need to, like weren't ideal, right? Dealt with like some elements, and you were tired and fatigued, and so I just don't need much to be content, right? And I'm generally happy for majority of the time, and the only way I'm unhappy is if, man, like if I was in a cold environment right now, that would be generally unhappy, right?
Yeah.
And so I find life way more fulfilling, right? And I'm able to do the things that I really like. But I'm glad that I experienced that because I wouldn't know what that barrier was, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I really like about it.
So thinking about that, right? Like something you learned from the military. What's something that you learned, experienced, habits formed in the service that is not benefiting you on the other side, right? Because a lot of times we talk about, the things that you learn in the military that's beneficial, right? But this video and this interview really is about us talking to other folks that were in our shoes, other people that are in there trying to get out. What's an ism or something like that that you learned in the military that you find needs to stay there?
I feel like so in the military there's like really strict rank structure, like of course civilian company has different level of positions and you definitely have to respect the position, but it's so military people like tends to kind of obey the authoritative like things, but in the civilian life if you know something that you're right, you don't have to kind of hide your voice. You can speak up as long as like your stuff. You know your stuff, and of course like don't be rude. But like people listen to you more than military, I think. So it's kind of like hurting me from speaking up to like people who have longer experience in IT or have higher position, something like that. So that's something that I'm working on to get rid of.
Yeah, so to build on that, I think the old order of thinking of I have to do something for a certain amount of time, um, just because we have this time allotted, is a very interesting concept to me. Because now being in the tech world, it's if you get it done, you get it done, and then you have more time to do something else, right? Instead of just we finished our training or like our physical training and our workout, we had a good workout for 45 minutes, right? Really high and intense, but the time allotted is an hour and a half. So what do you do for the rest of that time, right? So a lot of times in the military, we have to stay outside and just kind of like look busy for that time or something like that, just because we had to stay outside for an hour and a half because it was dictated, because it was written in these rules, right? So I think it took some time because I used to be super early to meetings because the rule was like, 10 minutes prior and that stuff. That's not something that people do. Like people come on with 5 second like buzzer beaters before they start the meeting, right? And it took me a while to really do that. Now, in some things maybe that holds true, a concert or like a big event, but like Zoom meetings or like calls like that, it's not a big deal. So I'm now relearning that. I'm like I could have 10 minutes to do something else. Like I can do whatever. So that train to time thing sounds really weird to me now.
I fully identify with both of those things you both highlighted, especially with the meetings. When I started my job, I always was 15 minutes early to stuff, especially since I was working from home. It was online meetings, still is. And so everybody gets a notification that you logged in.
Yeah.
And I'm logging in 15 minutes early, and people are like, "What are you doing? Why are you coming in so early?" And you realize, like, okay, I don't have to. So that's definitely something, I left. I understand value being early to things, but being as early as we were taught, in the Marine Corps we call it gunny timing. You're supposed to be there at 5, so your boss tells you to be there at 4:45, and then your closest boss to you says be there at 4:30, and next you know you're there at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
for a 5 a.m.
Yeah.
gathering because everybody tells you to be there early. They ensure that everybody's there on time, but and you know everybody's in the real world. You're responsible for yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're not there on time, then you're answering for it. You know, and then with yours, I completely agree with the strict rank structure. I find myself struggling with that now. I have senior folk that I'm sometimes I'm afraid to disagree with, because in the military, disagreeing with your direct superior is usually frowned upon. Or,
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to figure out a political way to say, hey, I don't agree with you. And sometimes it doesn't work. So I feel like that's an issue that falls and it kind of hinders us when we leave.
Yeah.
We're so besides that, right, now we're done talking about why you're in. Now,
now
let's talk about the thing we really want to talk about, the transition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the serious question I want to ask you guys about this. But first, I want to know, how did you prepare to get out? When did you make your decision, and how did you prepare from that time?
Honestly, I was very underprepared when I got out. So I got into this program, MSIC program that I was talking about earlier. After I fully got out of the army, like after I got out of the army as active duty, I stayed in my dad's house like for a little bit. I was just like slacking, and honestly, I think I was just trying to like reward myself, because I was pretty hard worker, and just not doing much. And this program is something that I was thinking about before I transitioned out, but I didn't have time.
Can I ask you how you found out about it?
Yeah, so I had one guy in my company. He went through this program. He had like background in IT. He has like computer science background. He has like bachelor's degree, and he really recommended me, and he really enjoyed it. He got a job in DC, pretty good job, like a federal side. But I thought I was not ready for this program, because the program required some sort of like some level of like IT, like kind of like, you know, self-study, because at that time you needed like network fundamental certificate. I don't know if it's still like that, but yeah, it was like that. So I just got back from deployment, and I didn't have like enough time to study that and get into the class, because it's a long class, right? It's a 5 month, like 5-6 months, something like that. So I didn't have time. But I decided to like, you know, get back into it, because, you know, I didn't want to like keep wasting time. That's where I met, you know, Johnny and, you know, Justin, and I think honestly me and Justin more focused on like professional development and technical development. I'm for sure was not the one who was excelling the technical side in the class. There were like bunch of people in my class like who were so smart about IT, and they had like super good experiences, like, you know, like almost like a special operation in IT guys. Like but I was just like lucky enough to find good mentor and good friend to study, like develop like a professional side, and kind of like a branding myself, like, you know, I'm this kind of person, and, you know, letting them know like what during the interview, that really benefited me.
Yeah, so for me, it was twofold. One, I applied for a cyber program, and I did not get accepted, right? But prior to that, I had a friend who told me about the program, and he was just like, hey, my friend did this program. He lives in Seattle now, and he makes this amount of money. And I was like, absolutely. Right? And I was like, absolutely. So it was me getting denied that, right?
Now, was this cyber program, was it in the military?
It was in the military, right? And so I would have gotten out later, but it was doing deferred gratification, because the course was quite extensive. But I'm like, look at all these skills that you get, and I'm like, I could pretty much negotiate or have like a really good life outside of that. So I was like, I'll get the training for free, right? They'll put me through it, but then I'll have all this experience, and then I could leverage that on the outside. Okay. So once I got denied, I was like, all right, awesome, cool. And then I had that idea in my head, and I was actually during an exercise, right? I was outside in the field, and we weren't doing anything. Right, we were just kind of sitting there waiting for something. It was hot, and I was just sitting on the truck, and I was like, this ain't for me. This ain't for me. I was like, this ain't for me. Yeah, this ain't for me. And you know, I was right there. I was with my captain at the time, and I just told him, I was like, hey, listen, I'm gonna transition out. And it's the program I'm gonna apply for, and he was 100% supportive of it.
Nice.
And
Awesome.
That's honestly, believe it or not, that's kind of rare. I've seen a lot of folks get a little pushback about the decision to get out in general, which very unfortunate.
Yeah, he's awesome, and I still talk to him now, and I periodically thank him for the opportunity. And I was like, I really appreciate that, because during the program I wasn't getting called to doing all these like random stuff or these random taskings. Like, they let me be a student, right?
Yeah.
And they let me focus on that, and I was never bothered. And if they did call me in for something that was like super, super rare, I mean, they were empathetic, right? They were like, hey, I know that you could be studying, that you could be doing all this stuff right now. We just need this one random thing, height and weight or something like that. But then they just let me go, right? So that's what I really appreciated. And that was the catalyst to like get out. It was a culmination of events. But I was like, this is cool. I've done what I've done. I've hit my goals, and now I have to make some new goals, because maybe I was gonna become stagnant, right? And I need to kind of challenge myself for certain things.
Okay, and so we got your time in. We have how you decided to transition in that initial part. Now let's get into the meat of like the actual transition. So, what did you do during your transition to make you successful? Because both of you gentlemen are successful now. So, what type of they smile, but I mean,
am I okay?
Am I,
Yeah.
Always reassessing yourself. But what did you do? Like, what were some of the tips and tricks that you either got or you found on your own to make the actual during your transition successful? Like, how did you find a job? How did you network? What did you do to get the upskill? It's kind of
I think it's I think self-assessment that you were just talking about is like really important, because there might be something that you have is really appealing to the recruiters and the managers who are looking for the right person. You might be the right person if you can advertise enough. You just have to know your strength and what your weakness. Like, try not to advertise your weakness, right? I mean, it's okay to tell people that it's like, when I was during the interview, I explained them that I do not have IT background. It's okay, but you always have to know that like what your strong point is, because if you just like, let people know that like I'm bad at this, and there's no reason for them to hire you, right? So you have to know what your strong point, what your strength is, and how to advertise it. Let's say there's one company and their like philosophy is you have to like, let's help other people. It's like, so like now that they're probably looking for people who help each other, like who help other people. And like you will have to find your prior experience who's like and related to it. And during the interview, even before, it doesn't matter if they ask you or not, try to like put that in during the interview. Like, I had this experience, like let's say like this person, like the manager asks you, it's like, oh, so how did you do this, like when you faced the issue? It's like, oh yeah, like when I faced this issue, like I was like working with my coworker, and we found a way to solve it. It's make your own story and own it and run the show. Yeah.
So number one, I would say surround yourself with people who are also motivated and focused.
very important.
And the reason why I say that is because I am not and I wasn't the best student 100% of the time, right? But the days that I was lacking, John was here to pick me up, and vice versa, right? And we always had some singular focus or some goal that we were setting, and that was really important. So surround yourself with motivated people. On two, research the companies and do your preparation, right? So research the companies, find things to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Preparation as far as like practice interviews. I don't know how many mock interviews that John did, and you helped us with this as well, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how many interviews that we did, but I can only imagine and say that the reps like helped out, right?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
the small people in our group that are four all passed our second round interviews, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if correlation to causation, but I'm just gonna go with it. It seemed to work, and that like your story, right? So every person has a story, and really focus on your story. If you sell your story, I think people can get into that,
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so Jung's story was really interesting. And I was like, dang, like I'm not even hiring you, but I would hire someone like that, right? Because if you can do all those things, like then I can teach you something, right? And I think that's the basis of the program, right? Is are you coachable and can we teach you? And after that, it's like, can we work with you? To be honest, do we like what you do? Can I imagine myself working next to you? How do I think these conversations will go? But that program shows that I can at least learn this, right, in a short amount of time. And so you already have the capability of doing so. So that's what I say, like, the biggest things are.
Yeah.
So how did you guys, you mentioned, like, researching companies. Tell me, like, how you did that. What was your game plan on looking for jobs and researching companies, especially since you were looking during the height of COVID? So
Right.
Yeah, so honestly, I was not the best at searching the companies. I know Justin was he did like amazing job on searching the companies and like talking to right people. I think like what Justin was talking about, like being surrounded by great people, like motivated people and who can teach you and what you can learn from. Like I was Johnny and I, like we were working for the same company, and Johnny really helped me out. What's important, like of course I did my research as well, like on literally you can literally go to company website and they will literally tell you what kind of people that they're looking for. And what I'm saying is that you have to like relate, like create your story, not create your story, but like you already have story and just relate to the core values. And like Johnny, my mentor, you helped me a lot on like how I can come up with the stories and how can talk more naturally. It's also important that like you practice until like you can talk about it kind of like at least kind of feeling like less uncomfortable, right?
yeah.
So I think that's it. Yeah, that's what I did.
I think like working backwards, and I got this from interview prep, and I was talking to someone like a mentor, and he was like, I just look at the next person above me and look at what they have as far as certifications or skill set, and then I went from there. So I always try to get these things and then get that myself, and I know that I'm at least marketable. And so that's what I looked at companies. I was looking at, hey, what is something that I really want to do, or at least that I'm interested in? You look at people, with LinkedIn, like what certs they have, and I'm like, all right, I should know a little bit about this or show some interest in that. Mm-hmm. So it was talking to people and reaching out to recruiters and things like that, and to see what are the people like there, right? Because not only am I looking at them, they're looking at me. So it's a relationship, right? Mm-hmm. And so am I looking at these people and seeing, do I fit in here? Can I see myself here? Mm-hmm. Location, I know that's really big, especially in our class. John and I would have worked in the Arctic tundra if they paid us, right? Yeah. Like it didn't matter where we're going, but some people are kind of limited in their areas, right? So you really have to dig in deep and maybe realize that this first job, at least for me, like this first job, I might not be there, right? And those loyalty to situations kind of are not really a thing in this world, and in the tech world at least. So I just went backwards, leaned on my mentors a lot. And in that program, we had a lot of support. We had a lot of help and people who are always willing to help. And that's super rare that people are like always willing to help. And if you show a little flattery, hey, I'm new, like you're so smart, blah, 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 butter the biscuit. And then they're like, oh yeah, I'll talk to you, right? And I had a lot of like moments like that where people were willing to help me, to be honest.
Now you said something that I kind of want to elaborate on. I'd like you to elaborate on. You talk about reaching out to recruiters. How did you? I know folks have a lot of issues getting answers. When they reach out to folks, how were you able to get answers when you spoke to these recruiters?
So for me in particular, I would just go on their LinkedIn, look at something, find something that they're maybe interested in, and then always come from a place of like, I'm just trying to be humble, and like you are smart, and that's their job, right? Their job is to find talent, right? And so I don't think, this is how I think of it. If I'm going to like Costco, right, I've never turned down a free sample, right? So if that was the recruiter and you have someone that's coming to them and they don't know how qualified you are really, maybe looked in their profile, but to them, they just seem to be more open to those things if I'm like reaching out to them, right? And going to those websites and finding those things. And they would tell you, hey, these are positions that we're looking for, like straightforward, right? It would save me a lot of time instead of going into this keyword filter and they're like, hey, we're looking for these roles, right? And they can look at these roles and then look at the experiences and the things that they're looking for and then go backwards from there.
Okay. That's a really good point. Reaching out to the free sample analogy was really good. So another thing too. So in regards to recruiters, I know there's a lot of folks that are looking at job descriptions and kind of self-eliminating, right? So I want to just kind of get you guys' opinions on this, right? Job descriptions for entry level. You know, they're all over the place. How did you maneuver through that issue?
I think so. I didn't apply a lot of jobs. Like I think like I only applied like a 10 of them, and I only passed the resume stage for the company that I work for right now. But one thing I learned is that like I work for like one of the biggest IT company, and like you will think that everyone went to college to like study like computer science or engineering, something like that. But it's really interesting that a lot of people are coming from different backgrounds. Like one of the best engineer in my team, she used to be an accountant, and like my another mentor, as good as the one that I was talking about, he majored in psychology, and the one who actually hired me, he used to be a doctor.
Wow.
Yeah, like doctorate in chiropractic, like back in like while ago. So it's not always about education. Education is important, right?
Yeah.
But I think what Justin was talking about earlier, if you are coachable, like can you learn things? Can you work with people and feel respected? And there in the job description, you can't. It's specifically described, and also what you can learn from, and like what you're gonna be doing, right? Are you that kind of person? Just like read the job description, and if it's for me, I try to be that person. I saw the job description. Okay, I want to be that person. Like I have some strength that's related to that, and I want to be that person. And the company that I work for right now, they saw something in me. Of course, like I used my resources, my mentors, my friends, and like how to like properly advertise my strength. And they hire me knowing that I don't have any IT background. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before you go, Justin, so one thing I wanted to ask, like, so a lot of folks, they'll get, if you were to look at the job description for the role you have right now,
Yeah.
it might list some qualifications that you
Absolutely.
didn't possess, but you got the role. And that's exactly what I was talking about. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes it'll say 3 years experience, bachelor's degree, and I think for your role specifically, it said something similar to that.
Yes. Yes.
And you didn't have either one, but you still got the role because you were able to prove that you could fit and be trained. So that's something that I want to kind of highlight in what you said.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. I started to find out that maybe there's a disconnect from the people writing the actual requirements for the job and the people actually working there. And so maybe someone's like, I need a new like engineer for this team, and someone who's maybe not that tied to it's like, oh, engineer, they must have these things, these things, right? This is a perfect ideal candidate. No one's perfect.
No
right?
one. Yeah.
And so once you kind of get past the initial like resume part, like once you're in person, I think your chances are so much better, right? Because then they get to see like the person that like your actual person, and then you have actual thoughts, and you can kind of show how you think through problems, and how you relate to people, and you ask questions, and you're showing that drive. But I just think there's a disconnect there, and that's what I was doing. Now I wasn't going to like, oh, this is my first day in IT, I might as well like apply for Mark Zuckerberg's job. Like there's no way, right? But I realized that this says like entry level, but like what does that really mean? Like, what does entry mean? Like, that's a little ambiguous, and it has these dates in there. But then you look on, again, doing the company research, people in that role, well, they don't have that. This person doesn't have this computer science degree. This person had, like, film, like, theater, right? And so they're also a great actor, but they could also be an engineer. So once I, like, found those things out, and I was like, oh, okay, well, it's just coachability, right? And likability, and do they like you?
Yeah, I think self elimination is such a prevalent issue when it comes to job searching.
Yeah.
Folks will see the description and then immediately say, "Oh, I don't have that. I'm not qualified." And then they get angry, which is rightfully so, especially if your only thought is to look at the job descriptions.
Yeah, I think no one likes rejection, right? And no one wants to be rejected, and that maybe there's something, and I just kind of got numb to it, right? I just started applying to so many places and getting used to a no, right? That it lost its luster. Like, I'm okay, well, someone said no. Now, like, I wouldn't climb Mount Everest if it's like, oh, we need advanced climbers. Now that's like a life and death situation. I should probably listen to that. But if I'm applying online to like a job or something like that, that's literally like nothing changes, right? Because if I don't apply, I'm definitely not getting it, right? Absolutely. So why not shoot your shot?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Why not shoot your shot? That's something that I think I really hope somebody that's watching this will understand that, just because you don't have exactly what you have on the description does not mean you're not qualified. It doesn't mean that they won't accept you or hire you. You just have to give it a chance, not self-eliminate. All right, talk about self-elimination. What's something you did not like about your transition? Something that you regret that you did, or something that happened that you wish didn't happen? Just kind of a little bit of an open-ended question.
I think because I was considering applying for this program, if I prepare myself a little earlier, I could have went to the program a little earlier because I explained that I didn't have enough time. But if I studied IT while I was deployed, I could have went into the program earlier. But if I did, obviously I couldn't have met Johnny and Justin. You guys are like great friends of mine, and I can't guarantee if I could have got the same job that I have right now. Which I really enjoy. I'm really grateful. So I think there are like pros and cons. Like I don't believe in like destiny and stuff, but those like little thing happened and it delayed me from starting to like study IT, but it ended up being good. I think it's really stressful to transition out, right? Because if you're in the military, of course, military life is very stressful, but you're going to get a paycheck, you have health benefits, all the good stuff. And if you do 20 years, you're going to get pension as well. It's promised. But you have to really like juggle like what you really want to do, what makes you happy. Like I can't tell people who have family that, oh, you should get out of the army or military in general because there's a better better life out there. Well, it was for me, honestly. It doesn't mean that I hated military. Well, maybe a little bit, but yeah. But it's really, it really depends on the people and the situation. I think so. I could have studied IT or a little earlier, but I'm not sure if it was gonna like be my favor, honestly. Yeah.
You think it wouldn't have changed anything because what was written or what happened?
I honestly think like it could have affected me negatively. So I'm not sure.
I mean, you're right. You could have. Not ended up in the interview loop that got you the job that you have now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's interesting. So I don't necessarily know many times in the military where I really had to really study something to get advancement. The only thing I can think of is our boards, right? And if I wanted to get a promotion, I'd have to study that way. So I realized that I had poor study habits, and that's the thing that I don't like about the transition is because it was self-inflicted, right? Like I needed to become like an actual academic student, and those habits as far as like I need to set some things in my day, and then you have to make sure we're on like these phone calls at night, so we're at least learning something. I didn't necessarily enjoy that because I was slacking on that department, right? So that's twofold. I had to work harder on that. One thing else is that if you say you're going to relocate and you're going to move, be prepared, because I was offered a job, and to my knowledge, it was supposed to be from home, right? And then they were like 2 weeks later, you have to move across the country, right? So I wasn't really that prepared to something changing like that. Now that's something that you're supposed to do, and being in the military is be adaptable. But I was kind of behind the ball, and I think I got lucky because I found someone at that company, and they were like, "Oh, these places are great," right? It made my list a lot easier, but I wasn't really prepared in that. And in the military, that kind of help you move, help you do all these things, right? And then you were kind of on your own, right? So that experience was new to me, to be honest. So I didn't enjoy it, but I did learn from it. So I think I'm better for it now.
That's something. There's something you said there that I would definitely like to pause on. Being on your own, right?
Sure.
A lot of times, folks don't realize. I mean, even when I get out, how much the military supports you in so many different ways, so many different aspects of your life. What's something that you've kind of realized that you have to do on your own now that's not as either you weren't prepared for, or that you wish you knew a little bit more about?
Both of us?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like so for example, like healthcare. So my company offers like 3 different like healthcare like a provider or like program, right? When I was in the army, I didn't even know like my coverage. I was like, oh yeah, I guess it's covered like 100%. That's what I was thinking. And after I got out, I had to read all the like terms and conditions and what would be the best. And I remember I talked to you about it. And I talked to another mentor about it. I still don't have like fully understanding about all those 3 options, but I chose one. But it's, in the military, they will tell you what's the right thing to do. And even before, like, sometimes they will not tell you what's the right thing to do, but they will do the right thing for you, at least for their perspective. But like you said earlier, you got to be on your own. It's like I had to choose how much percentage that I'm gonna put money on the 401k and health saving account, all those good stuff. Like, and you have to manage your money. It's like when I was in the army, I could blow up all the paycheck, and I know I'm gonna get paid like the next week or the week after, right? But I'm not saying like my company will not pay me, but I will have to like pay for my food and pay for my healthcare, all those good stuff.
So healthcare's a beast for sure.
Yeah.
Housing is something as well. And I was living in the barracks, right? So that was hidden cost. That was something that I never had to worry about in the military. And so finding out those things, property taxes, like those are things that I'm now cognizant of. What's interesting though? I've never felt being on the base, right, and being in a town, a surrounding town that's familiar with the military is a very interesting thing. But now when I see people who are like prior service or in, that's where I feel more of the brotherhood, right? Right.
Yeah.
So, once I'm out, now people, like I've had a lot of conversations where people are like, oh, like you're wearing like this sweatshirt or something like that, or like, oh, like where were you? And then you kind of reminisce on that, right?
Yeah.
And that was a lot of things that I didn't think that I would really enjoy, but now it's like you're part of that club. Now when they tell you like you're part of this small group of people, right? Especially being over here, like it's not that common.
Yeah.
It's not that common. Now it's like, well, I'm not in the service, but I know like so-and-so, like my brother twice removed, doctor was, but now you can like something to really talk about, and that's something to really leverage once you're outside, because there are a lot of networks and there are a lot of programs that are very veteran friendly, that are military like centric.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Something I realized when I got out is your career is very ambiguously up to you, right? So you don't know where you're gonna go. You don't know where you're gonna end up. You have a plan. You kind of enact that plan, but curveballs can be thrown at any time. Like you might get a job offer from another job, or you might end up in a place you never would have thought. But in the military, I could tell you how to get promoted in the Marine Corps. I could tell you what to do, when, how to do it. And you have a structure of like where you're gonna end up. You might end up being a sergeant major or something like that. The end of the road, the possible end of the road, right? It's very prescribed.
Sure.
And I found that out. It's the career on the outside is so much on your own, and nobody can coach you the perfect way for you. Like in the military, I was a staff sergeant. I could tell other sergeants what they should do to get to staff sergeant. But in the real world, not real world, the civilian world, in the civilian world, it's that it might not be that, not that black and white. It can be, you're very much on your own, which is something I realized when I got out is somebody might be able to give you advice on your career, but they can't prescribe you exactly. Unlike the military, which we all know how to pass a board or how to get selected, what you need to do. All right, well, this was great. I really appreciate you guys being here. If there's any last advice you would like to give someone that's watching this video that may be in your shoes that you were in right before you got out?
I would like to say that, it's my coworkers say, like, a lot of my coworkers, like, who I think, like, they are, like, the genius and, like, IT gurus, right? What they say every time is nobody knows everything. So you have to be able to rely on someone, like other people, and just admit if you don't know, you have to swallow the hard pill. Like, it's hard to swallow, but you have to admit, like, your limitation. Like, you don't know things. You should be able to tell people that you don't know this, but show them you are willing to learn. And even if you don't understand something, there's something that you can contribute. Like, let's say I was talking about, like, summarizing something that you have no idea about. You can't do it if you pay attention and just work with other people. That's, like, listening to people, and, like, communication is really, really important. In the military, like, everyone emphasized the communication is the key, right? If you get out of the military, it's being more important, not less important, I think. So be communicative and admit what, like, your limitation, and try to learn things from people, and you will get noticed. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say find your major definite purpose, like your why why you're doing a lot of things. And maybe focus on, like, what's the person that you want to be or the things you want to become. It's not like I didn't like the military. I liked it, but I couldn't see my family as much, right? So I wanted to be a better son, right? I wanted to be a better brother, right? I wanted to maybe have a family one day. So how do I move towards that, right? How do I jumpstart that process? So I needed to make a little bit more money for myself, and then I can kind of start moving towards those goals. I wanted to have more freedom as far as travel, but I really had to sit back and look at myself and say, like what are the things that you really like, and is the military fulfilling this role? And it came down to it really was in those aspects, right? I was a C+ son for the year, right? And so now, being out in the short amount of time, I've seen my family 3 or 4 times, right? And opposed to once a year, right? So I'm already doing better in that category, right? We're already speaking more, right? I'm already, like, have better sleeping habits, right? I'm able to like, really, I'm not really limited by time to do things, and I can travel, and I'm taking weekend trips to different cities and things like that. So that's what I find, and that's what I like. But I really had to do some self-evaluation and to really figure that out. So go through that process, and there's no wrong answer. Maybe you're already being fulfilled in this aspect, and maybe the military is right from you, and maybe you this is consistent, and maybe there's some bigger things at play and bigger goals. But for me, it was great, and I learned a lot, and I'm glad I had it. And I wouldn't have been here if I didn't have the military. So
I
I'm
agree.
grateful
Yeah,
for it, right?
I agree.
But yeah, I would just say just really focus on that.
Awesome. I appreciate it again, guys. Thank you for your time. Again, thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you guys next time. Peace.